Well, actually, into today's video, running quite late with today's video, so I've got to rattle through everything quite quickly. Go and have a look at where it's 8 to 10 days in today's video. It takes up to around the 3rd of May, so going into the start of a new month. We're going to be seeing a change over the coming few days. We're going to turn significantly cooler and more unsettled compared to what we've used to through most of April. So this change has been highlighted for quite a while, actually since the start of the month. The CFS V2 and JMA, the long-range models, have been indicating this change to cooler and wetter weather at the end of April. Very, very pleased with how those long-range models have performed this time. They don't always get it right when you're talking about 3-4 weeks away, but this time I think they have done particularly well. Anyway, this change is on the way. It's starting today, really, the high pressure beginning to weaken, but it's going to be tomorrow that rain begins to move in. Only showery in nature, not getting through to the east until late in the day, but it will be the trigger then to settle us into an unsettled pattern through most of next week. Now, quite how long that unsettled weather goes on for, you're going to have to wait and see. It could just be that it's a bit of a wobble and we'll go back towards slightly drier and warmer conditions as we go through May, or the first week or so of May. It could be settling us into a prolonged unsettled spell. It's one of those situations where you have a pattern change from a prolonged existing pattern to something else. You just have to wait and see, really, how long that change is going on for. You never quite know whether it's just a blip and then you go back to the pattern you was in, or whether it is a sustained change. So let's wait and see on that one. We'll know more tomorrow, probably, when we do the JMA Friday update. Anyway, before I get on with all of the charts, I just want to say about the ads. There's links to articles, excuse me, on all of the pages at gasoffice.com. Have a browse through the widgets. If there's any articles that you're interested in, please click through, because you're going from Gas Office where the article is, where you get a review on what you're doing. Thanks so much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages. They open out within the content. If you watch them, they'll close back up again. And thanks very much for doing that. All these things are basically paying for the website. They allow me to sit here and talk to you via Gas Office. So let's start off with the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. Now, we're still well above average at the moment, significantly so. The red line there is the 30-year temperature average just here, and we're well above that, quite obviously. So it's been a warm April. It's still very warm out there. It's going to be quite nice for most parts of this afternoon, a little bit more cloud than we're used to, but very nice weather. If you've been enjoying the warm, dry, sunny weather, get out and enjoy it while it's still going on. Now, you can see from this ensemble chart that it's going to take a little while to get this cool air in. This is the ensemble for London. The cool air or colder air will arrive in Scotland much earlier over the weekend. There's a low pressure developing on Saturday into Sunday. It's just holding up the progress of this change to colder air down in the south. So it's going to take a little while to get that cooler air through, but eventually by the time we get through to the end of the weekend and start next week, we are going significantly under the 30-year average. We're going to have a pretty cool week through next week by the look of it. After that, and going into the first week of May on this part of the chart, after that the temperatures do begin to tick back up again, because you can't sustain really cool temperatures at this time of year for too long, because we're almost getting towards summer. So the temperatures look like they're going to pick back up a bit as we go through the first week of May, but even so, not probably back to where we have been. And also, it's going to be unsettling. You can see from the precipitation spikes here that they are coming back. There's going to be quite a bit of rainfall coming through. We're a little bit concerned about what's happening on Sunday, as there is low pressure, as I say, just holding up the progress of the cold air coming down. But quite how far north it's going to get is uncertain. It could produce a lot of heavy rain, as the boundary between the warm air that we have been sitting in through most of April and this colder air coming down from the north, the boundary could produce quite a lot of very heavy rain on Sunday. Now, that low pressure may slide through the north of France, or it may impact southern southeastern parts of England, so we've got to wait and see on that, but it could be quite a rain maker. In any case, it looks like it's going to be very unsettled through the course of next week. Loads of precipitation spikes going on there. The temperature anomaly for the coming week shows that we're going to be cooler than average in most blue codes. Haven't seen that very often through April, so from the 23rd of April through to the 1st of May, we're coming out cooler than average. The precipitation anomaly, look at this, we're going average to above average through most parts of the country in the coming week. We haven't had that at all, I don't think, during April. So, yeah, we're ending the month on quite a wet note there. Back to average or above average rainfall. So let's run through the generic charts. This is the GFS for Friday, for tomorrow. This is when the change is taking place. You notice that high pressure has collapsed, with some of it going into the continent, some going up towards Greenland. This area of low pressure out to the southwest of Ireland is the trigger to start to turn it unsettled as that high pressure relents. Saturday will be a showery day, and then on Sunday, this is the problem that I've got working out what's going on with this area of low pressure. This has very warm air to the south of it, the warm air that we have been under through most of April, and then we've got this really cold air, certainly for the time of year anyway, coming down from the north. Now the boundary between the two has got quite an active weather front running through, something like that, and it's going to be how far north this low pressure gets, but it could impact England and Wales, particularly with a very wet day on Sunday. Otherwise, it may slide to the south of us, slide through the Channel or the north of France, and not do very much at all. But it's one to keep an eye on. Here we are at 6 o'clock in the evening on Sunday. That low pressure is off the southeastern coast. The complicating factor, of course, is that it's running into a northerly wind, so that's sort of trying to push this warmer air and the rain and the low pressure. It's trying to push it away to the south. But it's a bit of a battle, and if this was winter, by the way, this would be one of the classic sort of snowmaker type scenarios for the south. Whatever happens with that low pressure, by the time you get through to the start of next week, we're in a northerly wind, so it's going to be really cool, and there'll be a lot of showers. Some of those showers could turn increasingly wintry up in the north, and then go through to Tuesday still in an unsettled and cool note. And the GFS just carries it on through next week. Here we are on Thursday, the 30th of April, the last day of the month. Deep area of low pressure right over top of the country, giving no doubt a very cool and wet day. That's for a week's time, and as that low pressure moves out on the 1st of May into the North Sea, we're back into that cool northerly wind. But slight improvements for the bank holiday weekend on today's GFS. It does build this ridge down from north. That would be very cool under that ridge, but at least it is mainly dry. And you notice that the Azores high is trying to build out to west, so trying to support that ridge. So that may be encouraging signs for the bank holiday weekend. As I say, I'm going to have a look at the bank holiday on the events page this evening. The ECMWF is in agreement certainly through the first half of next week, so there's that northerly coming down. As I say, that's going to be very cool. It could give night frost, it'll give wintry showers to the high ground of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England in particular. No doubt just rain showers down in the south and the southeast. It takes a huge amount to come together to make it snow in the south and the southeast at the end of April. It can happen. It has happened in the past. It happened in 1981 and 1908 that we had severe snowstorms across the south and the southeast around the last few days of April. So it does happen very, very rarely, but I don't think it's going to be the case this time. The pattern isn't quite coming together. Nevertheless, it's going to be very cool at the start of next week, and that goes on into the middle of next week with the ECMWF keeping winds in from the north. It doesn't develop that low pressure over us like the GFS does for the middle part of next week, so that's not as bad. And actually, we go through towards the end of next week, we do try to get a little bit of a build of high pressure, but I don't think that does very much really. It may settle it down later on next week, but it's within relatively cool air. And then look what it does by the time we get through to day 10, Sunday the 3rd of May. When the GFS was building that ridge down from the north, making it quite a big feature, the ECMWF has it around Iceland, and the effect of that is to bring more low pressures underneath it. If you get high pressure in this sort of area, very often you will take the low pressures underneath it, particularly at this time of year, funnily enough. But the low pressures are coming in there, and that will give us a pretty grim bank holiday weekend. So the GFS encouraging signs of bank holiday, but the ECMWF looks quite grim, I have to say, for a bank holiday, cool and wet, if that was to come off. Finally, the GM, the Canadian model, which has led the way with this end of April pattern change. I'm very pleased with how the GM has performed. It's not usually as good as the other two, the GFS and the ECM, but on this particular occasion, it has been leading the way with this one. So we start next week in that unsettled and very cool northerly. We go through the week and stay in an unsettled pattern, really. So by Thursday the 30th, a week's time, for instance, the low pressure is still around the country. It's drifting off to the east, but it's unsettled and it's cool. The winds winds are in from the north and the northwest. Tries to build a bit of a ridge as we go through to the end of next week, but look what happens at Bank Holiday weekend. Again, it's that idea, but we've got the ridging up to the north, somewhere around Greenland and Iceland. As a result, we take the jet stream and the low pressures underneath it. And very similar to the ECMWF, as the GEM often is, that settles us into a very cool and no doubt very wet Bank Holiday weekend. So encouraging signs for the Bank Holiday from the GFS, but pretty grim from the GEM and the ECM. We will have a look at the Bank Holiday weekend on the events page this evening. But just coming back to some of what's going on, it's turning unsettled. The pattern is changing as it's been forecast to do for several weeks. We've got to the end of April after a very warm and dry month. It's all changed, cooler and wetter from tomorrow onwards. Well, that's it. We're going to be looking at JMA Friday tomorrow, so we'll do the month ahead forecast. It'll take us through the whole of May. Have a look at the CFS too, so come back for that tomorrow. That's it for now, and thanks for watching.